Hi everyone, I want to welcome you to our team presentation of our visual philosophic project on cultural theory. Cultural theory refers to the learned systems of meaning and patterns of behavior that are shared by a group of people and transmitted from one generation to the next. Let's take a look at social culture within the context of social theory. Culture has historically been conceptualized as the external environment, the way of life of a community. Now, within social culture, there are many aspects. Let's take a look at the first. Rites. Rites are a ceremony in which the action and wording follow a prescribed form and order. Examples of rites would be birth rituals, such as celebrations of a birthday, coming of age, bar mitzvahs, quinceañeras, passing down of heirlooms. Next, let's take a look at beliefs. Beliefs are learned and shared across a group of people. They exist in a variety of forms, and from those that are encoded in laws or ceremony to those that are implicit about the right and natural way to do something. Some examples could be beliefs on death and spiritual beliefs. Next, let's take a look at rituals. Rituals are habitual activities that structure the lives of a community and groups. Some example of these would be celebrations, festivals, in particular, let's say Holy Week in Spain or Mardi Gras in New Orleans. They can as well be traditional games and sports played within a culture. Next, customs. Customs are cultural ideas that describe a regular pattern behavior that is considered characteristic of life in a social system. Such examples of customs are food, architecture, fashion, and lifestyle. Next, let's take a look at physical culture within cultural theory. Physical culture refers to the physical objects, resources, and spaces that people use to define their culture. Let's take a look at structures. And what I mean by structures are the cities, or the towns, or even the villages, or the infrastructures within those cities and towns, the streets. Technology, another impact of physical culture. Access to technology and the influence of technology onto a child and their development, how they see the world if they have access to technology, or how they interact with the world if they do or do not have access to technology. Tools, and what I mean by tools are the resources that they have to influence their livelihood and contribute to their cultural traditions. Next would be schools. Schools play an integral part to the impact of physical culture in a child's development. The access to schools and the enriching programs that they may offer at these schools as well, and the quality of these programs are huge impacts on a child's development. Markets, and what I mean in the way of markets are availability to healthy food, promoting healthy living, access to medical care, and health awareness. And last, neighborhoods are an integral component to impacting a child's development. Neighborhoods give us access to schools that are maybe of higher socioeconomic, or maybe even in poverty, that don't maybe have the resources to support quality education and have high quality educational outcomes. So now, looking at those impacts of culture on a child's development, When you look at the social development area, each culture socializes its young differently. Culture norms and values provide guidance for the interpretation and evaluation of social behaviors, and in turn impart meaning. Language. Language forges how people think and how they reason. The focus of what people talk about in their conversations also varies across cultures, and children often take on parents' conversational styles. Cognitive development, cultural identity and background shape the way we perceive and understand our world and influence cognitive processes from early stages of development. Emotional development. Culture impacts in a child's interactions with other people. The rules surrounding it are impacted. Their early exposure affects the way children attend to themselves or to their relationships with others, forming their self-image and identity. Behaviors. Parents model how to behave around others, learning socioculture rules and expectations and taboos.
Next, we will discuss a subtheory called relational-cultural theory that stems from the work of Jean Baker Miller. It assumes that individuals grow towards and through relationships, and that individuals' happiness and well-beings are the result of how many growth-fostering relationships they are a part of. In this theory, healthy functioning is seen as the result of having authentic connections instead of facing developmental challenges individually. These relationships are impacted by and cannot be separated from societal and cultural influences. Growth-fostering relationships consist of a few different things. The first is relational authenticity. Relational authenticity is the ability for an individual to bring their real self into a relationship, including their honest thoughts, feelings, and past experiences. Authenticity is a prerequisite for full participation in the relationship. Next is perceived mutuality. This is thought of as the ability for an individual to keep a sense of self while being open to change experiences that may result from interacting with others. Mutuality is thought of as being an important aspect of how people develop respect and trust in relationships. In mutuality, both people grow and both contribute to the growth of one another. A growth-fostering relationship must also have relational connection. Relational connection consists of mutuality and emotional accessibility. In turn, there is also relational disconnection. This consists of disappointment and feelings of being misunderstood. As a result of being involved in growth-fostering relationships, there are 5 good things. This includes a sense of zest, a sense of worth, clarity of self and relationships, enhanced productivity and creativity, and an increased desire for more connection. These 5 good things are what bring about growth and development. There are some barriers to obtaining these growth-fostering relationships, and one of them is the culture we take part in. Western cultures are individualistic. Individualistic cultures promote autonomy, independence from others, competition, and self-reliance. The dominant cultural messages are at odds with what humans desire and need to develop properly. This leads to many individuals feeling isolated and disconnected. In addition to this, there are societal issues relating to sex roles, sexuality, race, ethnicity, and income that create power differentials and lead some groups to feel marginalized. Dominant groups maintain control and dictate what societal norms and values are. Individuals part of the non-dominant group are devalued, intimidated, and isolated. This makes it harder to be authentic and participate in growth-fostering relationships. As a result of this, the individuals experience relational disconnection.
So, contrasting values, individualism, and collectivism cultures. By definition, individualistic culture is a culture in which the goals of the individual take and proceed over the goals of the group. Collectivism culture is a culture in which the goal of the group proceeds over the goal of the individual. Individualism stresses individual goals and the rights of the individual person, whereas collectivism focuses on the group goals, what is best for the collective group, and their personal relationships. Individualistic is motivated by personal reward and benefits. Individualistic person sets personal goals and objectives based on self. Now, again, with individualistic characteristics, you see that most individualistics have independent control, goals for oneself, competition with others, their direct communication, private of self-knowledge, consistent self in all situations, prefers to work alone. Happiness is reserved for those who are successful and perceive themselves as such. Work is often seen as a key factor in happiness in terms of pleasant feelings and satisfied judgments of self-validation. Whereas the collectivism, you see relationship with groups, sense of belonging, duty to group, and harmony with others. Self alters according to context, hierarchy important, prefers to working in groups. You also see in communication, they do not rely heavily on the I. It's a not commonly used word. They use more we, collective, and together as the group. Now, some questions, or a question that I kind of propose is, how do you deal rather with people that have a different culture frame of reference from you? You say you might be someone from a collectivism background. How would you deal with someone who comes from a dualistic background? Now, with that in mind, again, I think there's positives for both, and really finding that common ground, really connecting that unison between the two is the approach that I think would be best. Some differences, like when you see culture contrast with other values in different countries. America is very, very individualistic. You'll see a lot of that with European countries. Now, we value like freedom, independence, self-resiliency, equality, and individualism, whereas a country like Japan is more about belonging, group harmony, and collectivism, and aseniority and group consciousness. And a country in the Middle East, there's a strong bond with family security, family harmony, and parental guidance in age and authority. Another example, or another phrase that Africans kind of use, the phrase is called Ubuntu. Ubuntu is something where Africans believe, or this group of Africans believe, that a person is a person through other people, that humanity is caught up and bound up with yours. When you dehumanize a person, you dehumanize yourself. The solitary human being is the contradiction in terms, therefore you seek to work for the common good because your humanity comes into its own community and is belonging. Now, this kind of segues into Charlotte's model of value and structure. Then this is a great framework to kind of really dive into really knowing how we kind of operate in our society terms on a more of a scale of hierarchy and what values to us. So Schwartz theory claims that there are three cultures value dimension that all societies must face: embodiment versus autonomy, hierarchy versus altruism, and mastery versus harmony. Schultz was basically a Israel psychologist, and he created this in the 90s, where he mapped out where different parts of the world, being in this context, where he felt that what are the most common or important values internationally, what people really consider. Now, just breaking a few down, mainly you see in this over here where benevolence. And benevolence relates to preserving and enhancing the welfare of those with who is infrequent personal contact, such as those in the group. And a universal relates to understanding, appreciation, and tolerance and protection for the welfare of all people and for nature. I think that really kind of going back to that whole collectivism really ties in with that. Really having the group effort, the mindset, really helping those around you and tolerating that really is important. So, again, this framework is a great base to kind of really see how we really operate in our society culturally. Now, going back, one question I kind of wanted to propose was, how can we as educators create safe culture spaces and environments to improve learning opportunities and increase levels of student achievement? Again, this is still a very ongoing battle. And with the climate of things that we had in 2020, there's still a lot of work to be done. And, I think as educators, this is our opportunity to really create those spaces for our students. And, that's why I kind of really wanted to raise this question and have us started thinking and brainstorming which ways we can actually create the safe spaces. So, again, here's our resources, uh, and that would pretty much conclude the presentation.